10 popular Booktube books that are not worth the hype. Now, if you haven't seen it, then me and Fun Fantasy Books have already made a video where we talked about 10 books that we think are worth the hype according to Booktube. And this is part 2, but you can definitely watch this one first and then watch our other collaborations later. Alright, let's get to the video. Okay, but now let's turn away from books we think are worth the hype and talk about some books that are maybe good, but maybe are slightly or very overhyped in the Booktube community. And the first one is a book that I personally love, but I do think it's slightly overhyped at this point. Legends and Latte by Travis Baldry. I mean, I still recommend this book to everyone. This is not a mind-blowing, groundbreaking kind of like piece of literature. It's maybe just like the timing when it came out. Like I think people were looking for something that was quite cozy and heartwarming. And this is just, it's brilliantly done. But does it deserve the endless hype and the 10 special editions it has received so far? Maybe not. Still read it, but maybe slightly overhyped.
Yeah, agreed. It is hyped because it's kind of like the first book that has opened this wave of cozy fantasy, but it's not necessarily that you get into it and you are like, gonna be amazed. It's just very chilled, very cozy. And as you said, great momentum. There's a book that has so much momentum, it's just reaching Stormlight Archive in terms of ratings, and that is Fourth Wing. We believe this is, well, we probably have quite different opinions, but to me this is a book that definitely has good things, but it's way overhyped. The things that this book made, I think, were done before and better in a way. So it adds something, the fantasy romance element, but I cannot understand how massive this has gotten. It's a new A Court of Thorns and Roses. That's like my statement.
I've made 2 videos already about this. So if you watch my content,
favorite book.
Yeah, you know my thoughts about this one. So I don't read much romantasy, so this is definitely not a book written for me. And there's some aspects here that I thought were well done, and the reminiscence of like books we used to read when we were young.
Definitely.
But the dragon bonding, I just couldn't get it over, and there's just like too much sexual tension for my taste. So, yeah, I'm not gonna say more. Yeah. So if you like Brandon Sanderson and epic fantasies, don't read this. It's too much. And the third book that I don't think is worth the hype according to Booktube, and granted this book hasn't been that much on Booktube in recent years because it's 10 years old, but this is a very famous grimdark novel. It's not the blade itself, so don't worry, but it is Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. Now, a lot of people will usually recommend the First Law trilogy or The Broken Empire when they talk about grimdark, and I only read the first book, and it didn't make sense in my head. If we follow is he 9 years old or 12? Like a young kid. He's not even hit puberty, and he's like this amazing warlord that is like having his own crew, and he's more clever with words than kings and queens. It made
Ender? Like for Ender's Game?
Like Ender, but almost like worse, because Mark Lawrence, in my opinion, doesn't really provide justification for why he's that overpowered in the first book. I've heard some people say that he does explain it in the second and third book. Might be the case, but I did not enjoy Prince of Thorns at all.
And you know us, you know we love standalones, and there's a particular one that we don't believe it's worth a hype, and that is Priory of the Orange Tree. So this is such a chunky book. It is massive, and it has great world building. The start, like everything sounds fascinating, but then it doesn't deliver.
The world building is incredible, and that's why I'm very intrigued to read the second book, because like Shannon has crafted something very like unique in this world, but the pacing I felt was very inconsistent, and the climax was not satisfying at all. It's such a slow burn build up towards, you know, something crazy is gonna happen, and then the climax is like wrapped up in 80 pages or something.
Like the Eye of the World.
Maybe a bit like Eye of the World. So it's still a book that is good, and I do understand why people love it.
Yeah.
And I want to read the prequel that just came out, but
likewise,
yeah, it's maybe just a bit weird enough. It's too long, but it's also too short at the same time. So yeah, it's a beautiful cover, very beautiful. Very beautiful.
Yes.
The next book, we both totally agree on this one. It's not worth the hype according to Booktube. And this is a relatively new book, so maybe some of you haven't seen it. Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. I had a horrible time reading this book.
No!
It is so short. I don't even know how to explain it, but I felt bored from almost the start. And I felt it dragged. And it's very rare for me because there's not much text on each page. There's only like 200 pages. But it was a struggle for me. Maybe it's just the overall tone. It was maybe a bit too whimsical. I think whimsical books like very rarely work for me.
Yeah. No, it is worth a hype. It is worth a hype.
No.
I acknowledge. The first pages are off. It took me a solid minute to understand what is happening, but once that you get into the vibe. I think it's whimsical, but at the same time it's dark, a little bit funny. It might be that you don't like that part.
Maybe.
And weirdly inspiring because we follow these incredible misfits doing stuff, and I just thought it was very, very funny and just on point. Very quick read.
I felt very frustrated reading this book because I did understand a lot of aspects that people enjoyed, but for some reason it just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
It's short, so you should maybe still read it.
Yes, it's him.
The next one I don't think is worth the hype, and Daniel Green, he loves this series, but that is Murderbot by Martha Wells. So I read the first 2 novellas in this series, and I think the main issue here is that I rarely enjoy books that have too much humor. We basically follow like a depressed robot in space. He's very sarcastic,
cool.
And I think the premise is quite fun, but none of the jokes landed for me. Like I don't think there was a single time I laughed. So if you don't enjoy the humor, then you're gonna have a horrible time reading Murderbot. But I suppose if you love the humor, then it's a great time. And these are short, so I could recommend them to some people that enjoy, like, if you enjoy Discworld and stuff like that, you're looking for something short and sci-fi, check out Murderbot. But yeah, it's not a book I would recommend.
And you know, the queen, well, one of the queens of fantasy romance,
my best friend,
Sarah J. Maas. And in this case, I really believe that Crescent City is not as good as it's supposed to be, or how it is everyone mad about this. Book 1, I think it has great elements, but then book 2, it felt so pointless. Really, I'm so mad about that. It's just very complex. It's a world building that she tries to blend everything that you can imagine, like any paranormal element, it's in here. They have angels, demons, werewolves, like angels, say whatever, and it's
dragons.
Yes, like everything is here, and it's a little bit messy. There's a mystery, but it feels not worth the hype at all.
It's definitely a very popular book that is not on my TBR. All right, and the next one is a book that maybe we don't fully agree on this one, but that is Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. I love Neil Gaiman. I'm a huge Neil Gaiman fan. Same. And I think Terry Pratchett is a genius. It's probably a me thing again, because books that have too much humor, that are too absurd, I just don't enjoy them. And Good Omens is the definition of an absurdist fantasy. It is absolutely absurd. In almost every single page there's a joke.
Yeah.
And for me it just became too much. Like it was all just a massive joke, and I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it's a classic, I suppose, in the absurdist fantasy genre. So yeah, no hate if you enjoy that book. I know a lot of you guys do.
I did, part of it. Like, I enjoyed it. I don't think it's the best thing that I read, and definitely not the best from Neil Gaiman, but it was funny, it was easy to read, and it was unexpected, but expected in a way. So it's a good read, it's a good time. Nothing that will change your life, but good read. The viral sensation Atlas 6 came promising us a dark academia with incredible pacing and grey characters, and it definitely had some of those elements, but it just becomes so complex, and it does drama, but in a way that feels very teenagey. I don't know, it was very complex for me to connect with these characters. The powers were great, but it came to a point where that addiction that I started having, it just felt flat, and I was not really very invested.
A lot of people will probably call this now new adult.
Yeah.
A term I learned recently, actually, because it feels YA, but it also has a lot of like adult themes. I got an arc of this book, I read it, and I didn't enjoy it at all. It felt way too angsty, and the romance didn't work for me. There were some very problematic, especially one character that I've just found very problematic. I don't think this book is written for me, so I find it quite like harsh to criticize it, but it's never a book I would recommend on my. And the last one is a book that Isa recently read.
Yes.
And that is, and we might piss off some people here, but that is Unsold by Will White. Now, I only read the first 2 books in the Cradle series.
Just the first
I thought the first book was okay, there was some potential, and book 2, I've forgotten the name, that was like, I did not enjoy that book at all. I didn't relate to any of the characters, and just the overall premise of a character that just levels up, becomes more and more powerful.
Yeah.
I just didn't find it engaging.
Yeah.
Now, I know some people say it starts getting good at book 3, but if I read 2 books and I really like almost hate it at that point, I seriously doubt that book 3 was gonna change my mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very unfortunate, because I hope this would be like a new favorite series of mine, but unfortunately it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I still have some hope. I like the idea of having this Avatar-like story with the different powers and progressive magic systems and all that, but it felt a little bit, well, childish in one hand, because yes, the character, it's very young, and then meh.
But hopefully you'll fall in love with it.
Hopefully,
Like,
hopefully I will.
I want everyone to love books. But yeah, those are the 10 books we think are worth the hype according to Booktube, and 10 books we think are slightly or very overhyped according to Booktube. Thank you so much, Isa, for allowing me to use your background and chill with your dog. And make sure to check out the other video we made on Fun Fantasy's Books channel. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video and got some inspiration to read more books. Now, if you want to support me in any way, then you can check out my Patreon. I have different tiers and you will get different benefits depending on what tier you support. Some of the benefits include getting your name in my videos, voting rights on my next feed, getting a special role on my Discord server, getting access to one Patreon exclusive video a month, or even art cards and bookmarks signed by my wife and me. Most of the money goes to hiring an editor to do a couple of videos for me a month, which basically allows me to post high quality content more frequently. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and God bless.